Hello there my lovely jewelry makers, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this multicolored bubble macrame bracelet. So you can really play around with your combination of colors here to achieve whatever look you want. As you can see, I made one of them rainbow because I love rainbows, and I made another one graduated purple colors. Now if you like what I do on this channel and you want to support me in any way, you can of course always like, share and subscribe. That is much appreciated. And you could also become a member of my channel or Patreon, where you can get early access, exclusive content and more. That you can check out in the description box down below. Otherwise, if you want to learn how to make this really cool multicolored bubble macrame bracelet, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we'll need. Now I'm using this c-lon cord in 3 different colors, but you can use however many or few colors that you prefer. For instance, for the rainbow one, I of course use 6 colors for that. And you can also use whatever kind of cord you prefer. Now I'm also going to add some beads just to add a little bit of extra decoration to this, and these are 3mm metal spacer beads in silver, but you can again use whatever you prefer, and you also don't have to use any beads at all. Just make sure that if you do use beads that the holes are large enough to take your cord through. Now to finish off the ends of the bracelet, I'm going to use these ribbon ends that has these little holes in them where we can attach our findings. So I'm using a lobster claw clasp and extended chain and a few jump rings to put it all together. You can of course use whatever clasp you prefer. Now to go along with the ribbon ends, I'm also going to use this glue to help make it more secure. As for tools, I have some tweezer nose and chain nose pliers to close up the ribbon ends and for the jump rings. And of course also some scissors so we can cut our cord. Now to make our macrame, I'm going to work on this project macrame board here along with some T-pins. It's going to help make it easier as we're working with it. So the length of cords we're going to need is 18 lengths of about 1.5 meters each. So that is just for the example that I'm making in this video. Basically what you need to know is it's 6 lengths per color. So because I'm using 3 colors, then I need 18 lengths. So as you can see here, I have them all individually knotted off, because what you also want to do is then just leave about 10 to 15 centimeters on the ends after putting the ends together, making sure they're even, and then we're going to work with the long ends here. So I then brought out my project macrame board here that I'll be working on, and I've got my T-pins ready, and I just want to fasten my cords onto my board so we can start working securely. Now I'm just going to take one group at a time here, and what I want to do is put my pins through the knot, because we're going to then work with the long lengths coming down, so the short lengths are towards the top here, and just fasten them in place one group at a time. Obviously you want to then position them how you want your piece to end up looking. So I'm going to graduate from my lightest, and then my mid-tone I'm going to place next to that. Just a little bit of space between them, something like that. Can always readjust this if we need to once we get a little bit further. And then my final color is my darkest one, and that's going to be the last one I attach. So it looks a little something like this, and then we can start making our macrame. And to begin with, I'm also just going to then work with one group of cords at a time. So I'm just going to start from the left side. It doesn't matter at all what you start with. I'm just going to put the other 2 out of the way, because we're basically going to make one circle or bubble at a time with one color at a time, so one group of cords. Now what I'm going to do is separate my cords out. So I'm going to take the outer cord from either side of this group here, just the ones that are furthest towards the sides, and just leave them out of the way so we don't get tangled up. And then I had the 4 cords in the middle coming straight down. Now I'm going to take, I like to take the 2 kind of top ones here. The one that's further to the right, I'm going to then grab that and bring that over towards the left. And then the one that's on the left here, I'm going to grab and bring over towards the right. So they are now crossing each other just like this. You can see it here. I actually have 2 cords going side by side. Now what we're going to do is make some knots around these 2 cords together, and we're going to use the 2 lengths of cords that are coming underneath that are also the middle ones here. So I'm just going to take the one furthest to the left first, and I'm then holding on to these two cords. So these are the two holding cords with my right hand. I'm going to then make a double half hitch around the two cords with the first working cord here. So bring it around both of them over the top, back underneath, so it loops around them like this and comes through the loop that's created by overlapping these two cords. Now I'm going to pull this down, and as I'm doing that, the two holding cords here, I'm going to hold taut and then pull the knot down towards the beginning where we have the original knot there, holding all the cords together, something a bit like that, and then make one more half hitch, so we end up with a full double half hitch here. Again, as I'm tightening this is the second half of our double half hitch. I'm going to then hold the holding cords taut and tighten the knot, and then put this out to the side. Now I'm keeping hold of these two holding cords here, and then put them in my other hand, and then the remaining cord I have in the middle that's coming underneath, so not the one we put out to the side, but I'm going to take this one in the middle, it's coming under, bring it over the top and back around and underneath. So this also loops around these two holding cords, but in a mirrored image because we're now working on the other side. So as you can see here, and then same thing, we want to tighten this down to sit at the same level as the first one we tightened on the other side right there. So that's the first half. Do the other half by bringing it around again, back over the top and right underneath. And then this is what our knot looks like. So on this side here, it looks like a reverse 6. And then hold the holding cords taut while tightening the knot. And we now have full double half hitch. Now what we have are these two cords originally that we overlapped, those are the holding cords, and there's a lot of excess here, so we need to tighten that up. So what I'm going to do is identify the holding cords but the ends that are coming out on the other side of the knots. So in this case they're kind of going upwards and away. So I'm just going to put my finger on just one knot at a time, just starting on the right side. Put my finger on the knot, and then the cord that I've identified is the one going through the knot there with the end coming out towards the top. I'm going to gently start pulling on that, which will then tighten the middle loop up and make it shorter. And then I'm going to do the same with the knot on the other side and the other holding cord until they are short enough for us to basically pull on both of them at the same time. Pull nice and taut, and the knots there around both of these cords sitting nice and close next to each other. Now I like to just fasten the knots up, retighten them if you need to. Now this is our beginning point of our circle. So what we need to do now is start with the sides. So we start on one side and then do the same thing on the other side but in a mirrored image. So I'm just going to start on the left, doesn't matter which side you start on. I'm going to grab the holding cord on this side. So that's the one on this side that we just pulled to bring the two knots together. I'm then going to grab the working cord on this side as well. So you can just push all the cords on the other side out of the way and bring that in with the holding cord. And I like to just twist them together like that a little bit. You don't have to do that. I just personally like to do that. And we now have these two as holding cords. I'm just going to grab the very outer cord then, and then bring it underneath the two holding cords, and this is now going to be our working cord, where we're going to then extend the row on the left side here. So we're going to make double half hitches with this working cord. So bring it underneath and then back over the top and around the two holding cords, back out underneath, make sure to go through the loop of itself, and here we then get a reverse 6, and you just want to pull this tight to sit next to the other knots there at the top. Repeat the step, so we do the other half of our knot and tighten that while holding the holding cords here out towards the side, nice and taut. And then to continue the row, we bring the working cord underneath the holding cords and then repeat, but we've now swapped hands. So again, using the working cord, I'm going to make a double half hitch around my two holding cords, and on this side it looks like a reverse, and on this side it looks like a normal 6 looping around. Now I'm going to then gently start to bring these holding cords a bit more in towards the center as I'm tightening the knot, so we also start to get that curve in place for it to turn into a circle shape like that. So that's a full double half hitch. Bring the working cord underneath to the other side again. Repeat the same thing with opposite hands. Make the first half of your double half hitch, tighten that, and then make the other half of the double half hitch, and then tighten that. Now to make the final knot on this side, bring it underneath again. So we now have it going towards the outside. Make a double half hitch again. So do the first half, and in this case, because it's the last one and I really want to get that curve shape in place, I'm holding my holding cords as I'm tightening the knot more in towards the middle and even over towards the other side a little bit. First half and the other half, and you can then see once I've done that we have more of a curve shape, and of course it's going to get emphasized more once we bring everything together, but for now that is fine. So now we have the one side done here. What we're going to do is go to the other side of the same color and start the same thing. We also want to create a row and obviously make the curve of the other side of the circle that's going to ultimately end up becoming the full circle. So same thing, just identify the cord that hasn't been used. So that's going to be the working cord, and the other two, again I'm just going to do my little twist. These are going to both be holding cords. So bring the working cord underneath and then make your double half hitch around both of the holding cords here. So that's the second half, and tighten that. Now to continue the row, bring the working cord underneath the holding cords and make another double half hitch. We just swapped hands and then tighten that. You can see we're continuing the row just like we did on the other side. Now the difference is I'm then going to stop here. As you can see, we've only made basically half of the row that needs to make this side here, but we need to start making the next one before we can carry on with this one, because we need to connect them on that midpoint of this side. So I'm just going to put these cords for the lightest color in this case that I've just been making out of the way, and then I'm going to move to my next color, which is in my case the middle one. So we're going to basically start the exact same way, which means I'm going to separate out the two outer ones, one on either side there, and just get them out of the way for now, and start with the 4 middle ones here. And we're going to start making that top section of our circle. So out of our 4 cords, I'm just going to identify the 2 kind of upper middle ones, and I'm going to take the right one and cross that over all the others towards the left, and the left one, cross that over all the others towards the right. And then we have our 2 lengths of cord here crossing each other, and then I'm just going to hold on to them with my right hand. So I'm going to start with the left working cord that's coming underneath and do a double half hitch around both of them here. Tighten this to sit at the same level, as close as you can get to it, as the top section of that first circle. Make the other half of a double half hitch. Hold the holding cords nice and taut while tightening the knot like that, and then swap hands. So hold on to both cords there with the left hand, so we can use the right working cord. Make the double half hitch around both holding cords, tighten that to sit at the same level. Make the other half of the knot and then tighten that. And then we are left again with our 2 loops in the middle, quite loose, and we'll then need to tighten them by first of all starting with one of the knots and identifying the cord that's coming through the knot and coming out towards the other side and going upwards basically. Put your finger on the knot and then gently pull on that cord so it becomes shorter and shorter and easier to manage, and then identify the same cord on the other side, so the one that's coming through the knot. Put your finger on the knot, help hold everything in place while we then tighten that, and then we can grab both cords at the same time and pull them tight and have the knots snap into place and sit right next to each other. Like that. Retighten everything if you need to. And then we need to start making the sides on this circle as well. So I'm just going to start on the left side because that's the side that is sitting next to the first circle that I started making. So I'm going to get to the point where we need to connect them together first. So I'm going to bring the holding cord and the left of the working cord to the middle here together. Just do my little twist. And then bring in the cord that I left out on the left side here. Bring it underneath and into the middle because this is now going to be a working cord. Then do a double half hitch and tighten that, continuing the row from the middle there. Do the other half of that double half hitch to make it a full knot. So like that. To make the next knot, bring it underneath the holding cords to the opposite side. And then just swap hands and make another knot. So again, a double half hitch, continuing the row with tightening that, and we're also starting to put that curve into the side, so the row of knots, by how we're holding the holding cords here. So in the direction I'm moving it closer towards the middle. So add that curve in. Do the other half of it. And now we've made half of this side, which means we're in the same position as where we left off on the other color that's right next to it. So this is the point where we're going to connect them together. So basically I have the working cord from either side that you can see they're kind of wanting to overlap. So what I'm going to do is let them. Now what I like to do is make sure that I do this the same way every time I do it throughout to keep consistency. Of course, it's completely up to you how you do it, but I'm going to take my right one and cross that over the left one and then back underneath again. So we're basically twisting the cords together, but making sure they're coming back out to the side and the color cord that they belong to. So we've just twisted the cord, so they're just fastening each other up, and then it doesn't really matter which side you continue with. I'm just going to finish the one that I'm currently working on. So continuing this row, I'm literally just going to continue working as if we were just doing it without connecting the cords together, but just making sure obviously that we don't get anything tangled up. So the working cord was coming underneath the holding cords, and the next knot that we're due to make, just make sure to tighten this nicely so that that little loop that's basically left from being connected to the other side isn't too obvious. And then make the other half of the knot, and then to make the last knot on this side, bring the working cord back underneath to make another double half hitch. And again, because this is the last one, I also want this to be even more curved for the full row, so I'm going to make sure once I tighten this knot, the holding cords are going to be more towards the middle, even more towards the other side a little bit. And you can see we'll end up adding a little bit of a curve into it. So that's going to help once we go to connecting the two sides together to create the full circle. So this now is the full curved side on the left of this color here. So again, I can just put them out of the way just so we can go back and complete the incomplete side here that we stopped halfway on that side because we needed to make that connection. So we just want to continue. We made the first half, and that means the next knot we need to make, I need to bring this working cord underneath. Now it's already connected with the other side, so we can just bring it straight underneath the holding cords. Just make sure you pull tight so we don't have too much loose cord, more than necessary. Otherwise, then make your double half hitch. Pull that nice and tight. You can see we get the two circles or rows of knots in this case. They're not quite circles yet, but they will be, sitting as close and tight together as we can. The other half, and then to do the final knot, bring it back underneath to the other side, do your double half hitch, and again finishing off that curve, bring it further in towards the middle, the holding cords, while you're tightening your final double half hitch. And from doing this, we've now connected two not quite yet finished circles together, but they're going to be circles, but they are connected. And from here, I like to just finish off this first color full circle before I then move on along the colors there. So to do that, we basically need to repeat the exact way that we started out, which means I'm going to put the two outer cords, so the working cords, out of the way, and all the other colors here, and just focus on the 4 holding cords that are now going to be separated out, and I'm going to use 2 of them as holding cords and the other 2 as working cords. So I like to just separate out the kind of inner ones on either side. So the right one goes then over towards the left, and the left one crosses over everything towards the right. So we get the 2 cords sitting side by side but crossing in opposite directions, and then I'm holding on to them both with my right hand. So I'm going to start with the left cord, and I have this space here to work with. Again, it's just the working cord, the ones that are coming straight down underneath here. Make your double half hitch, come through the loop that's created by crossing over those 2 holding cords, and then hold the holding cords taut while you tighten your knots here. Repeat to get the second half of our knot, and pull that nice and tight. Now hold both holding cords here with your other hand, and then the remaining working cord comes underneath, and then just need to go around and through the loop to make the first half of our double half hitch. Pull that tight while holding the holding cords nice and taut, and do the same thing for the second half of our knot. So there we go. Now again we have our 2 loops here, kind of loose and flopping around. So identify the holding cord that's coming out on the other side of the knot, put your finger on the knot, and then pull that gently to make it shorter and more manageable, so we can do the same thing on the other side. So identify the cord that you need to pull, and then put your finger on the knot and gently pull that through until they are short enough to be able to pull both and snap the knots into place. So we now end up with a complete full circle, and this is the very first one, and it's also then already connected to what the next one is obviously going to be, a full circle once we finish that. So this color, in my case the lightest one, can then be put fully out of the way, and I can move back to the middle one here that we already started out because we needed to make that connection point. So I want to then have the focus on finishing this one off, and I'm going to then do that by basically repeating what we just did with the first one. So I'm going to go to the 3 unused cords, so in my case that's the ones on the right here, from this middle color only, and just identify which cords are which. This is my unused one, so that's going to be the working cord, and the other 2 here I already used to make that initial little beginning row. I like to just do my twist and then hold the holding cords out to the side, bring the working cord in underneath, and then make your double half hitch to then extend this row and start the other side here of what's going to be this circle with this specific color. So the other half, and then making your first full double half hitch, bring the working cord underneath, and then make your double half hitch by doing the first half, making that nice and tight up against the previous knot, doing the other half, and then if you remember from the first circle we made, this is the point where we stopped, because this is the middle of the side row, and this is where we then need to connect to the next circle, but the next circle is not made yet, so we then need to move to that color to start making that and get that into position where we can then connect them together. So this is basically repeating what I've already showed you, but obviously we're working along depending on the amount of colors that we have. So this is my third and last one. If you have more colors, for instance, like I have in the rainbow one, you literally want to continue to do this however many times you need to. But in this case, this will be my last one. So I'm just going to show you again. Let's just identify the cords here. So I'll separate out the outer one on either side. Again, just try and push the ones we're not using out of the way so we don't get too tangled up. But then I need to cross these over each other so we get that double cord. So the right one goes to the left and the left one goes to the right. And we have this overlapping section of the cords where I then take the first working cord that's coming underneath and make a double half hitch. And bringing that down to the same level as where the other circles started out. Do the other half to complete the knot. Swap hands so we can use the remaining cord here to make the other knot with. Again, same level. Do the other half to fasten the knot in place. And this is where we then have ended up with loose kind of floppy loops that we then want to fix by identifying our holding cord that's going through the knot and coming out on the other side. Put your finger on the knot there and shorten the loop by gently pulling the cord through, and the same on the other side. Just identify the right cord and then gently pull it through while your finger's on the knot. So when they're short enough we can pull them together. Just retighten if you need to. But this is then the beginning of our next circle, in this case the final one. So all the right cords here I'm going to then just put out of the way, because I'm then just going to start on the left side like I've done throughout. Also because, like the color I showed you before, this is the side that I need to connect with that previous circle that we've yet to finish, so that's the middle one in this case. So I just want to get this into position first so we can make that connection. So again, identify your cords. The very outer one here that hasn't been used is going to be the working cord. The remaining two on this side, I'm going to bring them together, and I like to do my little twist, and then I'm going to take the working cord underneath, make the double half hitch, make sure to not get tangled up there, and extend our row going towards the left here. Bring your working cord underneath the holding cords to make the next double half hitch. First half and then the other half for the full knot. Nice and tight, and you can see we're slowly getting a bit of a curve into it. And this is also halfway through the row on this side, so that's the connection point. So identify the working cord from either of these two circles that are right next to each other, and again, it doesn't matter what direction you do it in, I just recommend that you do it consistently throughout. So I'm taking my right one, crossing over the left one, and then flipping them again. So again, they're spiraling around each other. So the darkest color here is coming back towards where it came from, because we want the cords to stay in the same groups throughout. We just need to have these little connection points to make it one full complete piece, of course. Now after that, make sure it's underneath the holding cords to make your next double half hitch, make sure that's nice and tight. And like that, bring it underneath to make the last double half hitch on this side. And also make sure we just add that final bit of curve into the row by bringing the holding cords more over towards the other side. Now I like to go straight back to the previous color there and just finish off that circle before I move on. So you can just pull that working cord a bit tight if it seems a little loose. Bring out the 2 holding cords here so we can complete this side. Now bring the working cord underneath the holding cords, and we just need to finish off this row on this side of the circle. So make your double half hitch, making sure the working cord comes underneath the holding cords there. Make your full double half hitch and then bring it underneath the opposite direction to make the final knot, and also adding in that final bit of curve to the row to emphasize that. So it's going to help when we go to bring the 2 sides together and make the full circle, just like that. And we can now do that connection point for the full circle, and that's going to be done in the exact same way that I showed you on the first one. So just using the 4 middle cords here, I'm going to identify the 2 that are going to be the holding cords, and I'm going to take the right one, cross that towards the left, and then the left one I'm going to take and cross towards the right. So we have the overlapping section there. And after that, you want to take 1 cord at a time. It's going to be the working cord. I'm holding it with my right hand, so I'm taking the left one first. And hold your holding cords nice and taut while tightening your knot and extending the rows there. Swap hands and use the remaining cord. And tighten that. And the other half, and this is where we have our loose floppy loops. So just make sure you identify the holding cord that's coming through the knot, and you can pull that to make it shorter. The same with the other side until they're short enough that we can pull them both at the same time and snap the knots together. And now I have created a full second circle. You can see it's sitting nice and close next to the first one. So this is literally what you want to continue doing. Keep repeating these steps. As you can see, we're working our way across from one side to the other, 1 row at a time. So obviously on this row we still have this very last circle left. So we made one side, so we just need to make the other side. And in this case I don't need to then connect anything to this outer side, because that's just like the very first one we did. There's nothing connecting on the outside. So for this one, I'm just going to grab the cord that's the working cord, which is this one that hasn't been used, bring it underneath the 2 holding cords, do the little twist, and then start extending the row on the side here. We can end up getting a full circle as well. Bring the working cord underneath. Like that, and also slowly start to get that curve into it a bit. And this is the halfway point of our row, but like I said, in this case we don't need to make a connection point or anything because there is nothing to connect to. So we just continue. Bring your working cord underneath and keep extending the row, making sure we add a curve into it along the way. Bring the working cord underneath for the final knot here on this side. and just getting that final curve into it as well. There we go. And then we can straight away bring the two sides together by making the final part of the circle, and we just do that by using the 4 previous holding cords here. So the 2 outer cords, one on each side, and just put them out of the way. And then I'm going to take the inner cord on either side, so the right one goes towards the left and the left one goes towards the right. So you can probably recognize what we're doing now. We now have this section of cords here where they're doubled over, and we want to use the remaining cords that are coming underneath as working cords to just extend the final part of the rows and make the final little section of our circle. So that swap hands, do the final knot here on the other side. Make sure it's nice and tight, and then we are left with the loose and floppy loops here that we can tighten by putting a finger on the knot and gently pulling the cord through the knot, just on one side at a time until they're short enough that we can snap them together. Just make sure everything is nice and tight. And then here we have our very first complete row of circles or bubbles, whatever you want to refer to them as. And this is what it looks like. So the next thing we're going to do is move on straight away and make the next row of circles. But before I do, this is the point where I like to just add my beads in so I don't forget. So of course that's if you're going to add beads. If you don't want to, just leave that out. But I'm going to grab the outer cord on either side here and add 1 bead to each. So this is the very outer cord on the left, and then just find the end of your cord, put your bead onto it and let it drop all the way down. The same with the cord on the other side. I just like to do them both now, like I said, so I don't forget to add one, because I then get into doing the macrame and I maybe would forget to add it once I get to it. But then put your bead on the cord. Now what you can do as well, if you're using a synthetic cord like I am here and you find them a little bit tricky to get through the beads in the holes, you can always take a lighter and singe the end and make sure to just roll it between your fingers. You create a little needle. So that's one way to make it a little bit easier if you feel the need to do that. Obviously be careful though, because it is a naked flame. We then need to start the next row, and I'm just going to keep starting from the left working towards the right. You find whatever rhythm suits you. There is no right or wrong way. So what we basically need to do is create a second row of full circles. So that means we need to make that top section first. So even though we basically made that exact same as the bottom section there, we still need to make the top section separately. So I'll show you that. Everything is exactly the same, it just looks a little different because we already have the first row made. So I'm separating out the 2 outer ones from this group only. The other colors are out the way for now. We don't get tangled up. And then we just have the 4 cords in the middle here. Now the 2 outer ones of the 4 were the holding cords for that previous connection point, you could call it, where we brought the full circle together. So we just want to do the exact same thing now. So I'm bringing the right one towards the left and the left one towards the right. So we have that doubled up section of cord. Just do the exact same thing. I'm holding on to it with my right hand, so the left cord here I'm going to use first with the open area of cord to work with. Make double half hitch to make a new row of knots here, and I'm going to hold the holding cords nice and taut and tighten the knot right up below the other circle there. Sit as tight together as possible. The other half of the knot, tighten that up nicely. Now swap hands, hold on to your cords with the left hand and then use the right cord to make your double half hitch on the other side here. Again, nice and taut up against right underneath the previous row, which is what finished off that first circle. And we then have our loose floppy loops here. So identify your holding cord going through the knot, pull nice and tight so we get them shorter, so we can pull both at the same time, and start this row properly by snapping the knots together. You can see this is now the beginning part of what's going to be the next circle, and everything from here is also the same. I'm going to then start on the outside, so I'm going to put these two cords out of the way and just work on the left, just kind of twisting my cords together, bringing the outer cord, in this case that has a bead on, bring that underneath, and then make my double half hitch, and just make sure if you are using beads that that stays in that corner there, because once you then make your knot, it traps it in place. Make the other half of your knot and tighten that. And now because this is the outer side, I can just complete this whole side and also add in that curve without having to worry about having that connection point. That's not until we get to the other side of this circle. So we're extending the row one knot at a time here, adding that curve in as well. Tighten that, and for the last knot, bring it underneath the holding cords, and make sure to add that final bit of curve in with the direction you're holding the holding cords in. Bring that through and tighten that. And then I'm just going to leave that there for now, and then move to the other side of the same circle, so the same color cords here. I'm going to start out this side. So again, I'm taking the very outer cord, that's going to be the working cord, that's going to then come underneath the other two that are holding cords, and then start extending the row on this side. I'm making a double half hitch. There we go, bring it underneath to make the next knot. Push that nice and tight, and this is then the point where we're halfway through on this side, and this is where we then just need to stop, because that's going to be the connection point to the circle that's going to be right next to it, so the next color here, and that's not ready yet, so I'm just going to put this out of the way. Now I'm also just going to add a little bit more pins in here, because it's starting to move around a bit, because obviously we have a bit more work done. So just fasten it a bit more in place if you need to. But then the next color here, so the next group of cords, I'm going to bring them all out and then only work with the four middle ones to begin with. So separate the outer one on either side, and this is where we first need to start off our circle by crossing our cords over and getting that section of doubled over cord, so the right one goes to the left and the left one goes to the right, and we have our two cords crossing, and then with the remaining cords that are coming out underneath, make your double half hitch and tighten this right up against and underneath the previous circle that's right above it, like that. Swap hands and do the same with the remaining one. Make your double half hitch nice and tight, and then we can shorten our loops here in the middle and then end up bringing this row fully together and snapping the cords and the knots in place. You can see that's the very top of what's going to be the next circle here. So I'm going to start on the left side because that's the side that I then want to connect with the unfinished circle there that we just were working on. Bring the outer cord underneath to start extending your row on the left. Now if you want to, you can of course also add beads here in the center between the rows. That's completely up to you, but I'm just going to add them on the outer edges. But if you do want to do that, don't forget to add them. Bring your working cord underneath. Make your double half hitch, which when we've done the other half of it, like that, tighten that. That is now halfway on this side, which means this is going to be the connection point. So that means I'm going to take the two working cords here, the one from the group we're just working on now and the one from the previous group, and I just want to twist them together. So I'm just bringing the right one over the left one because that's the natural way it comes to me, but just continue to do whichever way you're doing it. And then back underneath the holding cords here, back in the group that they belong to. So we keep all the colors together. And then make your knot, next knot here, nice and tight. So we get the circles sitting side by side as close to each other as possible. So it's not obvious that there is that connection point. Bring it underneath to make the final knot here on this side. And the final part of the curve. So the left side of this middle circle now is ready, but I'm just going to go back to the previous circle and finish that off first. So bring the working cord underneath the holding cords and pull them nice and tight there. And then just continue extending the row. As if we were just making this circle in the first place. Underneath to make your final knot and the final part of the curve. The second half to complete it. And there we go. And then what we need to do is complete this circle by just making that bottom part. So separate your cords out. I have the inner one on the right goes towards the left, the inner one on the left goes towards the right. So they overlap and we get the doubled up cord. And then just make your knots just like all the other times I showed you that. Where we can then again extend the row here. On this one side first, nice and tight, swap hands, and then just use the remaining cord on that side to extend that row until we are then left with those floppy loops that we can tighten by gently pulling them holding cords through the knots there until they are short enough to pull together. And there we go, we now have another full complete circle, the first one on this second row here. And now you basically have the tools to literally just continue doing this, because the next step would be to go back to, in my case, the middle color here. And I already finished the left side, so I want to start the right side. So again, identify what's going to be the working cord, bring that underneath the holding cords to start this row off by extending the initial knots there that we made. First knot, bring it underneath in the opposite direction to continue it. Nice and tight, nice and tight. And this is halfway on this side, so I'm going to leave this because we need to connect this to the next circle, but that hasn't been made yet, so we need to start that one out. So I can just take the first three. So that means we need to just start the circle here. That's going to be the final one on this row. Again, separate out the outer ones and use the 4 middle cords. First make that doubled over section by crossing the outer cords, and then make your double half hitches around them and tightening them right up underneath the circle above it. And the final one on the other side here. Pull them nice and tight until we can then pull the loops here tighter, and it creates the row of knots just like that. And pop the knots together, and then we are ready to start on the left and extend the row there. So I'm bringing the holding cord and the working cord on that side together, so they are now both holding cords. The working cord comes underneath them, and we're starting out this row. By extending towards the left here, bring underneath to make the next knot, which after this is when we reach the middle point on this side and the same point that we reached on the other circle next to it, and that means this is going to be the connection point. So I'm going to take the right one, flip it over the left one, and then twist them around again. So again, in this case, my darkest color is coming out to the same side that it came from. And right in position to make my next knot. To continue the row on this side here, and also of course the curve for what's going to end up being our full circle. Underneath to make the last knot. And there we go. I'm just going to put that out of the way and go back to the middle circle there and finish that off. So you'll kind of find your own rhythm and routine of how you're doing it. And the way that I'm doing it is the same thing I'm repeating over and over again. But like I said, you can find your own way. And just continue making knots to extend this row. Again, just make sure that right after the connection point, you just really make sure that that's nice and tight so they are as close to each other as possible. And then underneath to make the final knot. The final part of the curve, so we can then make the part of the circle here that's going to bring it all together. So just focusing on the 4 middle cords. The right one goes towards the left and the left one goes towards the right. And then we make our double half hitches around both of them on one side at a time, just extending those rows for the final little bit before we can bring them together. The final one on the other side here. Tighten those knots nicely. And then we can identify the right cord and pull them together gently by shortening them until they're short enough to pull at the same time here, and snap them together and make a final full circle that we've been working on. This is then of course the middle one. We have one left to finish off on this row. We already made the left side, so I'm just going to go straight to the right side, which is the outside in this case, which is also then the one that has the bead on the other cord. And this is what I mean, having gone through the whole row here, I could very well have forgotten to add that bead if I hadn't done it already. So that's why I like to add them on both sides before I actually get to there as well. So bring the outer one under the others two, make your double half hitch to extend the row. Underneath, make your knot in the opposite direction here. Underneath again, make your double half hitch and gradually adding in that curve as well. And final time underneath to make the last knot on this side and also the last part of the curve. And the bead is sitting there nicely trapped in place in that corner. And then we just need to finish off the circle by connecting the two sides together. So, of the 4 middle cords here, the inner one on the right goes towards the left and the inner one on the left goes towards the right. Make your double half hitches with the remaining 2 cords in the middle around the 2 holding cords here that are crossing each other. Pull that tight, and the final one, and pull that tight as well. And then we just have to bring the 2 sides together by pulling the loops here tighter to each other, one side at a time, and then snap them together. And there we have the final circle or bubble on this row. So I now have 2 completed rows with completed bubbles or circles, whatever you prefer to call them. So this is what you want to keep repeating. I showed you how to start out and then basically how to continue, which is really the same thing anyway. You just have to remember that when you're starting a new circle or bubble, that we don't just start making the sides straight away. You have to first of all make that connection part where we overlap the cords. So like this here, we have to make that part first. That's going to be the very first part of the next circle. You can't like reuse the last part of the previous circle. You have to make a whole new circle. And of course, if you're adding beads, remember to add those in as well. So just keep going like this until you have the length that you need. So now I reached the length that I want mine to have here. And then what we just want to do is finish off the ends so we can attach our ribbon ends to something. So I just want to make a couple of rows of macrame here so I don't block off some of these circles when we attach the ribbon end. So what I'm going to do is basically use the same technique as we did to start out and close off each circle, but make a longer row with that. So I'm going to take the 2 outer cords, one on either side, and we then want to do the same thing, cross them over all the other cords to the opposite side. So the right one goes to the left and the left one goes to the right. And then we have the doubled up cord here that we then want to start making knots around with all the remaining cords that are coming straight down underneath. So just starting on one side, I'm holding on with my right hand, so I'm going to start on the left using 1 cord at a time. So the very next cord, bring that around, make a knot, and then tighten that all the way down, and then just do the other half to make it a full knot. And then just make sure that whenever we're tightening the knots here, that we hold the cords pretty much straight across like this, because this row is going to sit right underneath and up against that last row of circles. Grab the very next cord and make a knot with that. And then tighten that right next to the other one. We're just going to continue using one at a time. Now what I'm going to do is work my way into the middle. Just do the next knot here. So 1 cord at a time, make your knots until I get to the middle part. So you can basically separate out your cords, because when we then get to the middle we need to move to the other side and start there. So I'm only going to be using, in the current position that I'm in, these remaining cords just here. So just continue doing that until we're at the middle point. So just like this. Then I'm going to swap hands, so hold on to the cords here, the holding cords, with my left hand, and then we're going to start doing the exact same thing, but starting from the right. So again, just take the very next one, the furthest right one in this case, and again tighten that knot right down to sit underneath that circle. Just like this here. And then again, use one cord at a time, grab the very next one, working your way towards the center. And once we're in the middle, we've completed the full row, except in the middle here, we have the 2 loops that are loose that we've been working with. So those are the holding cords, and what we just need to do is the same thing we did when we started and finished off the circles, is to basically identify the holding cords on the ends here, and then you just want to start to pull them through. Now obviously it can be a little bit tight because there's quite a few knots around them, but just get a nice grip and then pull all the way through until they get nice and short, and then just at the end pull on both sides at the same time, so we snap the row into place and we don't have a gap there in the middle. So I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to just use the same 2 holding cords here in this case, because this is the width of the actual ribbon end that I'm using as well, so it fits just nicely. Now if you have a very wide piece, then you might want to get the end a bit narrower. In that case, what you can do is reduce the amount of cords every time you do a new row. So for instance, on this one here, you could then leave out the holding cords, you could leave out the next cord on either side, and then just use the next one after that on either side here as the new holding cords. So you would just bring those over instead, and then use them like this and make your knots in the same way, and then just leave out a few cords at a time to reduce the size of the rows, like I did on this one here, where I reduce them down to then fit the width of the ribbon end that I want to use. So that is just an option, but for this one, like I said, I'm just going to keep using the ones I already have. So I'm just going to do 2 to 3 rows or so, whatever's going to fit nicely inside of the ribbon end. So repeat this however many times that you need to. So I'm just going to leave it at 2 rows for this. It's going to fit nicely inside the ribbon end, and we can then undo the piece from the board here. And you just want to flip it around, and then of course we need to do the same thing on the other end as well. So then we just need to finish off the ends, actually get rid of the excess cord here, and then of course attach our ribbon end as well. And I'm using a synthetic cord, so I can singe the ends of this, which is what I'm going to do. But if you're using a natural cord, you'll have to use glue or something like that. But what I'm going to do is cut down the excess, so we have short little length left. Also just get the end ones here. So that's the majority of the cord. Now, like I said, I'm going to singe the end, so I'm going to use a lighter to basically melt these ones. And if you're using a synthetic cord, you just want to add glue instead before you cut off the cord, and then that'll be the way to seal it in. But this is how I'm sealing these in. So obviously this is a naked flame, so be careful because it gets hot, but you want to melt down the ends and you can press them in, and this basically seals it in place so the knots here won't come undone. Just do a bit at a time and do it all the way across, so we get a nice straight end as well that's going to fit nicely inside the ribbon end without too much bulk to it. So something a bit like that. We can just check that the ribbon end is going to fit nicely, so it'll actually go on top of the cord here and we can clamp it down. But what I like to do before I add the ribbon end to the cord is add some glue inside of it to give it that extra strength. So I like to use a toothpick as an application tool. Get a bit of glue on there, and you then want to get the glue inside the ribbon end here just make sure to cover the inside walls. Now we don't need to fill it up completely because this is going to get clamped down and the cord is going to obviously be put inside of this and take up a lot of space inside. So whatever excess glue there is just going to come spilling out. So really just make sure to cover the inside walls. That are going to grab onto the end of the bracelet, around the cords there. Something a bit like that. And I do also like to just add some of the glue on the actual ends here, just so when the two pieces get clamped together and the glue dries, it's going to really adhere nicely together. So once you're happy with that, we can add the ribbon end onto the cord here, push it in as far as it'll go, and then we just want to grab some pliers to start to clamp this down. Now I like to hold the piece in my hand and then put a finger on either side of the ribbon end to make sure it stays in place, and then we can start to squeeze it tight. I like to go gradually from side to side and don't go into one place and do a big push because it can move a bit while you're doing this. So I like to just, before it's completely squished down, just check that it's still sitting where I want it to, and then go in and do the final squeeze. Nice and tight around the cord so those teeth are really going to grip into them. And just make sure to close up the ends as well. And then of course you just want to leave the glue to dry. You can wipe off any excess glue if you want to, and then just repeat the exact same thing on the other end, and then leave it to dry like I said, and you have these little loops on the ribbon end we can attach our findings. So that is how you make this multicolored bubble macrame bracelet, and you can of course really play around with the color combinations to achieve whatever result you want. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and maybe even learned a new macrame technique along the way. So if you did, please feel free to like, share and subscribe. And if you want to support me even more, you can always become a channel member or join my Patreon. Links and information will be down below. Otherwise, I really hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.